Now, all right, welcome back to another Seminole Sideline 365 episode. I want to welcome my co-host here. What do you like? What do you like to be called? What have we decided on a name? You can't be
You
this
got Bruce.
title.
You got Bruce. You got the old man. You got Alumni 74. Any of those will do.
Awesome. Well, now that we've established 5 different names, I mean by next week we'll
Now,
have one singular name in the title box
maybe
there.
maybe we should have people vote on it. Okay, vote on Bruce, vote on Alumni 74, or the old man. Any of those. Let's put some votes on and put them in a comment to us there.
Yeah,
Okay.
we love the comments. Keep them coming, guys. We know we're just starting out here, but all the comments make a difference, and we love the impact. And hitting the thumbs up button, sharing the videos, anything you can do helps. So we appreciate this feedback and support, positive or negative. You don't hit the thumbs down. I know they took the thumbs down button away from viewing,
Good.
but I think it's
Good.
always good for positive and negative reinforcement.
Hey, and thanks to KB for some new studio stuff. You know, he's out there contracting, putting it together. Good job, KB.
Yeah, we're always trying to, improve the brand, improve the presentation to you all from week to week. So yeah, we've done a couple of upgrades. Let us know what you think of those as well. If you don't like them, you think we need to do this or that, we love your feedback on that as well. So yeah, just we're here again another week, closing out Thursday here, February 24th. So right now I'm in Virginia. It's cold here. We went from 70 degrees down to 32 degrees. So typical weather in Virginia. How's it down in Florida?
Florida, man. Florida here, near Ocala, about 3 hours from Tally. It's beautiful day here today. Went out, did a little yard work, which I hate to do, but it's beautiful day.
Awesome. Well, glad to hear that. Glad we got the weather out of the way. So tonight we're going to be talking about receivers. We're going to be breaking out the position. What do we think of Ron Dugans? I think we were all surprised to see that contract extension come in January. Personally, it was the birthday gift I never wanted to receive. But these things happen, and we'll discuss that, and we'll go through that. But before we get started there, we would love to go through kind of some breaking news. We have Jody Potter in the chat. Jody, it's great to see you. Thanks for stopping
Thanks,
by the show
Jody.
tonight. We hope you enjoy tonight's show. But like I said, we had some kind of breaking news this week in terms of the spring practice schedule being added or shared out on Twitter by the staff. So as you can see there, a spring practice is what leads up to the spring game. So these are the allocated times that the team's allowed to practice during the season. So exciting time. So it's just cool to have these out there. So this is when media will get some availability. I'm not quite sure how much availability they'll get. Sometimes they're closed off. Sometimes I know they do some recruiting or sometimes some co-coaching opportunities around that. I believe FSU did that big pro that you may have seen it, Bruce, when they did the big coaching clinic where they had FAU, FIU. So a lot of programs come down, like 100 different programs, as like a kind of a recruiting camp too during this time, where they brought all these prospects together at one time, had a bunch of college programs at one time come together, and I think it was during the spring as well. So kind of do it around this time period as well, which is cool. But this leads up to the April 9th spring game, which I'm super excited about, to see some of these freshmen we've been talking about on the running back side, see how the offense is progressing, as well as on the defensive side, and see how these transfers are fitting into the system, the ones that have come in early during the fall, so or the winter time. So yeah, so nothing more to dive in there, but I think keep April 9th on your calendar for the spring game, likely on ESPN during that time frame, and hopefully you plan to go up to it, Bruce?
I was thinking about it, and because I'm about 3 hours from the stadium, and that could happen. That could happen, but if not, I'm definitely going to catch it on TV because of the excitement of it all. And to comment on what you said about practices, a lot of coaches from different programs do come in. That's pretty normal. That's gone on for hundreds of years, so to speak. And they meet and greet because in the coaching business, like in most businesses, it's who you know, right?
Yeah.
Because you could be out of a job and you've made some friends and you call people up. If you're not networking in the coaching business, you're out of business. But they also pick up other drills and how other coaches handle things. It's a constant learning situation.
Yeah, I think the funniest thing I heard, the rumor was that FSU is going to be hosting that big camp with all the college coaches around it, but that the thing with Dion potentially being there with Jackson State and how that was going to go down. So we're not going to dive into that, but I think it was funny that he could be potentially scouting for his next job. So
Well,
which could be true.
I will say this. I don't know if he's going to show up for that. I don't think he's going to do that. But I do say this. Dion, if he has another decent year, he's going to be in D1 somewhere. Dion in D1 somewhere in 2023.
Well, he
Okay.
confirmed in an article a couple of weeks ago, I think earlier in the month, that FSU was one of 3 schools that talked to him originally, before he went to Jackson State. And this was, I believe, around the time that Willie was getting departed and being let go. But Florida State, TCU, and one other school, Division I school, FBS school. And he basically thought one of these schools was going to hire him on the spot. They asked, "When can you start?" They literally said to him, he didn't get any of the jobs, turns out, but he confirmed that Florida State was one of the 3 schools. So that is, take it or leave it. He could be lying. He could be.
Well, he's proven now that he can recruit.
Yeah.
Okay. And guess what? When Dion leaves in 2023, he's going to take at least one guy with him, and that's Travis Hunter. And he's going to take some of those other guys that committed to him, because I know he sold them. We're not staying here for long, fellas. Yeah. We're not staying here for long. Yeah. And so, he's not coming to Florida State because Coach Mike is going to have another good year. Okay. We're going to take it to the next level. I'm a big believer in Coach Mike.
Like I said, I don't want to go through another coaching search, but we'll see. All right, so we're ready to dive into this thing. Before we get started, I'm sipping on, like I said, instead of bourbon tonight, it's a wine night. I got excited for the warm weather, cracked open a bottle of white, and now we're back down to 30 degrees, so I kind of ruined that.
What is it? What is it?
Monkey Bay. Monkey Bay.
Monkey Bay.
It's a 7-Eleven wine. You get it for $5. It's been one of those weeks, when you just want something, you run out to get it, and it was warm out, and I got it. So
I got you. Well, you know what? I got my own. Right there. Pilar rum. Hemming. You ever heard of Hemingway?
He wasn't alive when I was, like he was for you, but no.
It's produced by the Hemingway family, Pilar rum, and I'm going to crack this one open too. Bam! Look at that.
I like it.
I'm going to go neat with it here, okay? And so we can really get into it.
Well, while you're making that, I like that. I'll have to try it. I've never tasted that before, but crack that open. Let's get started and come along for the ride, guys. So tonight, like I said, we're going to be breaking down the wide receiver position. I think the best way to start, we've had 4 transfers come into the program over the course of the last couple of months for the wide receiver position, but it all starts at the top, right? So we have Ron Dugans. He is the lone holdover, well, other than Odell, Odell's been with the program, I think, since 94, 95. But other than that, Ron was a Willie Taggart hire, right? He was a Taggart hire coming from Miami.
He came out of Miami.
Yeah,
coming from University of Miami. But he
was
played at Florida State. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. But he was hired by Taggart for his staff, and then he was a carryover with Mike. And, a lot of the times you don't see that, right? You don't see those carryovers. And especially with a carryover who has yet to really perform in terms of development of that receiving room. So his contract was set to expire in January. You look at the Discord, you look at the FSU communities, many people did not expect, after the recruiting cycle in which he signed 0 receivers in this last cycle, and in 2 years he has yet to produce a receiver that's had over 400 yards in the season, that in the last couple of seasons, that he would actually be re-signed. Surprisingly, he was. Let's stop on that. Why do you think Mike because I do believe this is one of the pillars that Mike will live or die on, is that I'm sticking with my guy. I'm sticking with the guy I've had since the guy I retained and that I'm keeping. Why do you think that he's willing to potentially go down with Ron Dugans at the position?
Well, I think, as you said, there's 2 holdovers, holdovers, and that's Dugans and Odell. Now, if you're going to hold someone over, it's probably Odell. Odell has the legacy Ron has the legacy. They're both good guys.
Yeah,
I like
no, no,
both guys. I saw Ron Dugans played for 4 years,
yeah,
and he produced on the field. He went into the NFL for a very short career, and then there's Odell. He's the crowd favorite. But at some point, people turn on you, okay? They started to turn on Coach Bobby Bowden in the end, okay? But I think I don't know why they kept Ron Dugans unless he had more to do with some of these portal guys and they figured to rebuild, we need to bring in more portal guys instead of freshmen. How many freshman receivers really make a difference
well,
on a team?
if you get a good one, if you get a good
Well,
one,
yeah, but
but
if you're Alabama
yeah,
or if you're a top team, then you can maybe plug him into a system. But this team is a total rebuild. So I don't have a good answer why they kept him. I don't think any reporter on the Florida State Seminoles, any reporter out there has asked, "Hey, coach, why did you keep Coach Ron Dugans?" Nobody asked that. If I was there, I'd probably have asked that. But you know what? They hate questions like that. And they may not ever ask me for a question again, but it's a legitimate question that you asked. So the answer is he's either there just because of legacy. He's there because of legacy, and coach wants to give him an extended. Well, I think it's a 1 year extension. Both Odell and him both have a 1 year extension.
yeah,
As far as I know, there probably wasn't a substantial raise there, and they're just going to play that out one more time to see, because you're right. There were no freshman signees at all in the class
no,
of the Seminole Tribe 22.
no, no.
So let's start with the transfers. Let's start looking at
Well,
those if that's the
before we
direction you want to go.
before we go into that, I do want to have a word on Dugans. Like you said, it's hard to bring in the freshmen that can be a true impact freshman. Those are usually coveted by the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Clemsons to that point. There's
By the way,
definitely
this is very powerful stuff.
well,
Go ahead.
we'll have
Sorry to
put it on.
break your train of thought.
No, but well, there's your review right there. We will, but like I said, I think it's tough to bring in those guys. If Florida State is not currently at the level where he doesn't have. You cannot bring in those types of guys to the receiver position unless you have some type of money being thrown at these guys, which Florida State is also struggling with. The thing though you said is okay. Well, you can't bring the freshman to make a big impact, but he's been here for 2, 3+ seasons. Where's the development with the guys he brought in 3 years ago? Where, the Jordan Youngs, the Ontario Wilsons, where are these guys stepping up to take that next level? Why aren't we seeing development in the guys who are now sophomores and juniors? And seeing, is it because, he brought them in and they weren't the talent level? They weren't the 4 stars. They weren't the high 4 stars that we're just seeing the consistency of drop balls, missed assignments, not lining up, and like it's those things I think that irk the fans is that they're consistent at being inconsistent, and that's what we hate. It's 3rd and 5, drop ball over the middle, 3rd and 7, drop ball on the side. Like it's those things over and over and over, along with not being able to get or be in contention for these stud receivers that in the old days, we may be able to get. So I think that's some of the frustration. But like you said, I think it's a lot on Mike to say this is the guy I'm going to ride with, because I do think that potentially it's. I think there's a good corporate analogy here in that a CEO goes to him and says, "What are the tools that you need to be successful? I believe in you. We know that you're not hitting your metrics. What is it? What are the blockers and what are the tools that you need to be successful to hit your targets?" And Ron goes, these are the receivers I need. There's the portal. Boom, 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 boom. We got you the receivers you need. This is now the year you have to show me that you can succeed, right? I think that's the closest analogy I can get, is that Ron said, I can be successful. I can show you. He's saying all the right words. Now it's time. He's got the tools now. Go and do it. And I think that's it.
I think it's very complex. I think it's very complex. Yeah, he hasn't brought in superstars, 5-star, 4-star guys from high school. I don't think he's brought in one of those guys to be in. He might have had a force. I don't know. It's not worth looking at. Yeah, we don't need to get in that nitty gritty. We're here from the fans' perspective, and that perspective you pretty much laid out. I think the other thing is, as you said, this is a make or break year for Coach Mike. So he can't bring in a freshman that's not going to contribute. Why would you give a scholarship to a guy like that? You got to bring in guys that have been through college programs, even though they might not have caught a lot of balls or have, but you got to bring in guys that can produce now for you, and have that college mentality. So overall, I think that's probably where they are. But there's something, and down the road, if this doesn't work out, somebody needs to ask him the question. I don't mind asking Coach Mike a question like that. What is it you saw in Coach Dugans to keep him on when there hasn't met the metrics, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, I think both of them might not be around if it doesn't go well, so maybe I'll ask him a lot of the questions. All right, well, then let's dive in first of who did they bring in? What are those tools that are now going to enable, hopefully, Ron to take that next step and to succeed in his role here? So let's start with the first guy I think that I'd like to discuss. Well, Winston Wright. So I think he's the one, the biggest guarantee you have of all the group of the guys you brought in. Because I think in the four you brought in some projects, you brought in some guys with potential, and then you brought in one kind of guaranteed production guy, and that's Winston Wright from the junior out of redshirt junior out of West Virginia. The guy's 5'10", 180. He's shown flashes that he can do on kick returns, punt returns, but he can also play in his assigned space on the field as well. Like, he has that built-in production that no one else on the team. I mean, he's the number one receiver on the field at Florida State right now. He was one of those coveted guys once he hit the portal. There's a lot of stuff going on with the West Virginia program that nobody knows what's really going on, but people are transferring for a reason. And I think this is one of the biggest gets for Florida State at the moment. He had 63 catches for over 650 yards last season with 5 touchdowns. This guy is going to immediately make your wide receiver floor, bring it up a notch, and it's going to raise the minimum talent of what you have in that room. I think it's an instant impact. Just on the baseline level, I think this is a guy that can get you be that 800, 900 yard receiver, and if not be your 1,000-yard receiver next season. If things go to plan, because he has that potential, he has the speed, he has the assets to him, and I think this was a great get. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for this team to win games, Winston Wright has to be a big part of that in the wide receiver core. He's going to be a starter. If he's not a starter, then they have a huge miss here. Okay, it'd be kind of like the McKenzie, miss. Okay, so Winston Wright he's gonna run back punts for sure, because that was a disaster last year. So he's going to be your punt returner. I don't think he's going to run back,
because there was a pro in the NFL that was like, why is everybody leaving the program? And Winston was basically like, you already know what's going on there, and left it at that. So
okay. The bottom line is a productive guy, an experienced guy. He's not a big guy. He's about 180 pounds. He's about 5'10", 180. So he's not going to physical people. He's fast, but he's going to beat him. He's going to beat him on his route running. That's one of the biggest things with this wide receiver core that bugs the hell out of me, and that is running routes. And it could be Coach Dugan's fault. I don't know, but you've got to run routes to get separation, because George Travis, he's a guy that, I don't think he's a pure drop back guy. We know that. So you've got to have some separation there to get him. But Winston Wright has to be the number one receiver in the room right now.
I totally agree with you.
And if he gets hurt, it's going to be devastating. We can't afford.
We can't talk about injuries, because that's too hard of a variable to predict.
No, I understand, but we don't have any room for error. We don't have really people who step in.
Well, I think this is part of the reason they brought in 4 guys at the wide receiver position.
Exactly.
They understood they have a deficit in this position group, there is potential in it, but the current people in the room are not dependable at the moment, and so you had to bring in 4 people in order to infuse some talent
He
into
looks
the locker.
like the most legitimate producer in the room at this point.
Absolutely. I mean,
And no,
he
no,
should.
no. I'm going to take that back. And I know we're talking about the transfers now, but we'll get to him. Ontario Wilson, and we'll get to him in a minute. But I think he's a legitimate producer too, because he was last year.
Well, he was the most consistent.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
he was he was our best receiver last year. So we'll get to him soon. Let's go on with the transfers.
Right before we get off Winston, I think the last thing with him is that he transferred for a reason, due to some issues.
Well, they
at
all
West
did.
Virginia. But lastly, he sees this as his springboard to the NFL. He has 2 years of eligibility left.
Yeah.
But he's going to be motivating himself to show off what he has so that he can go to the NFL. I think that's the important thing to see here. He needs to grow his numbers from 600 yards last season, 5 touchdowns, to 900 yards and 8 TDs. Like, this is his opportunity to show it in the ACC and really grow those numbers. So I think he needs to become a leader in that locker room, and we'll see in the spring game how he looks. But that's why I think someone of his caliber was an important get, and to see if he can become a leader in that room as well.
I don't think he needs to have 63 catches. I think if he has 45, I think if he has 45 to 50 and he has 700 yards, that shows consistency over 2 years. And he's going into a team that is still rebuilding. And with a quarterback, remember, who ran the ball. What did we say on our last program?
Like 2 programs ago? Times.
Yeah, 100 and some times. He's not a pure drop back passer. So, I think if he can stay healthy, stay in the game, he's going to get his numbers.
Yeah. All right. So, we're seeing Winston Wright up there as wide receiver number 1 in terms of talent, and ability, and potential. Next transfer I want to talk about is Micah Pittman. I'm a big fan. If you haven't watched it, I know I shared it with you. Him and his girlfriend do a vlog series on YouTube. I think it's I forget what's called, The Day in the Life of Micah or something like that. It's really cool. They share it. They do an episode every week. He just posts another one.
Oh, that's cool.
He just posted another one where he basically walks through his day, goes to the shows some of the locker room off, shows them going to class, teammates they're going through training right now at Florida State as part of the program. So
and if you want to come on the program here, come on. We'll welcome you.
It's really cool because to get that inside access from a player's angle, especially a transfer's angle. Yeah. He seems like a really cool guy, great attitude, great head on his shoulders. So I'm interested. I want to see him succeed, and you can even go back and see his Oregon footage of what he did there in terms of the vlog series. But here's another guy too that comes in with a lot of great potential, who's been hindered somewhat by injury. He's coming off an injury last season, and then really bad QB play at Oregon. He had a quarterback there was from BC, not really a drop back passer as well. And he's making another bet on himself that he can come back to the East Coast, really come into a program, into a Mike Norvell offense that can produce for him and really elevate his numbers from only, he only produced 500 yards and 2 touchdowns while in Oregon. And this is a redshirt junior. So he's looking that he can solidify himself as a dependable playmaker in this offense, as well as potentially be an asset in the kick return game. And that's something we keep talking about because I don't think Florida State's run back a kick in maybe, it feels like decades, but I think it's been 3 or 4 seasons we haven't run back a kick. Someone fact check me on that, but it feels like
are you talking about on punts or kickoffs?
Both. I can't remember since the national championship game the last time we returned a kick for a touchdown.
The best kick returner, one of the best kick returners we ever had in this program. Most people don't even know his name. He played 1 year and then went to the pros. Tamarick Vanover. Look it up out there, fans. Tamarick Vanover. Now he went into the NFL, didn't stay long because they brought him in as a kick returner. This guy could fly, and because he put up big numbers in 1 year or 2 years that he was at Florida State, he got drafted, and he got drafted high. Tamarick Vanover.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how he's utilized once again. I think it's understated a little bit of how much guys like these transfers have to learn the playbook. But this guy's another guy they expect to raise the level of talent in that receiver room, and see if he can really become the player people thought he was going to be out of high school as this 4-star, highly rated pick out of Oregon. I do think it's interesting too that he was looking to transfer, and he didn't go to a place like Miami, where his coach is now his former coach, Mario Cristobal, is now the coach of. So I wonder if he was like, once again, the system he was in, he couldn't really show off what he had. Dealt with some injuries, and now within this Florida State offense, can he really shine within it? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's a decent sized guy. They got him at 5'11". That means he's about 5'10", 205. He caught 26 balls at Oregon. He's looking to come in here. He's a junior, as you said. He's looking to play. He's not looking to sit the bench again. So I think he's going to be motivated. I think he's going to be well motivated, just like Wright, to make it a great year for himself, and then maybe put on one more year and then go to the league. So I think he's going to be well motivated, and that's what we need. And he's a kid who's been in programs, the conditioning programs. He knows what is expected. He knows what's expected. He's not a freshman. A freshman doesn't know what to expect. So We'll see how fast he picks up the playbook.
No, I agree. And having watched some of those highlights, we have some up here. Credit to ABC and everyone who hosts these highlights. But it's just interesting to see how he plays. He's not necessarily going to kill you with his speed. He does have some top end speed, but just his route running too is something to watch. And the way he's willing to go over the middle, and like you see here, he can break away once he gets that foot on you. So I think he can be that over the middle receiver that we've kind of been missing. And he is physical, like you see there. He's willing to take that hit and get that extra yard, which I love about him. So, and I see him as a leader within this team as well. Just watching the videos of him, how he gets along with teammates, how he's pulling in the freshmen to the seniors, and he's only been in the program for a couple of months, if that. So I definitely recommend you go.
And all these guys are already at school. They're already at school.
They're in classes. They've been in classes, but just to see kind of the meshing so well. And he have actually made a comment of like, Norvell got the right guys, like because how well people are meshing together, which I think is a good side that they're picking the right guys. So expecting big things from him. I think if we can get 400, 500 yards out of him next season, it would be a great lever of success. And then his senior year, if he sticks around, because I believe he does have 2 years of eligibility, then he becomes that star senior.
Yeah, he's a 2-year. He's going to definitely be a 2-year guy coming off injuries, trying to get his numbers up, get some more tape. He's not going to bounce after 1 year. That would be remote. He's a 2-year guy for sure.
And I think that's the biggest thing with these transfers is that all of them have, at least 1+ years of eligibility with them. So they have time to get in. If they don't, fully understand the playbook, if they can't get in and get the rhythm right, if they develop an injury, they have another year. So it's not just one and done guys.
Right.
I believe every one of the players they're bringing in has multiple years of eligibility, which is very positive. You're not just betting 1 year on one guy. You have these guys in your system. So it's almost like you did go to high school, but you got physically mature guys instead who do have some game experience, so that are mature enough to come in, learn the playbook, put the work in, and be ready.
Sure.
The last two guys we're going to talk about are the projects, I think. The guys that don't have the numbers, don't have the reps, and are still developing at their position. The guy I want to talk about first is Johnny Wilson. This guy, he is a physical freak in terms of his size, the speed he brings, and the way he carries himself. You'll see him on Micah's videos, which is he looks like a giant. He's 6'7", 225 from Arizona State. I think Norvell, I would be interested to see how they utilize him. I think he may be lined up sometimes as a tight end because he's going to be he's known for his blocking skills in terms of screens, and he's going to be one of those mismatches that you didn't have before in the red zone, right? Because you can just toss the ball to him, and every corner is going to be at a disadvantage as long as you get it into his radius. So I think it's going to be interesting what type of packages they build around Johnny. Once again, can he envelop himself in the playbook, get him ready? How do they use him? Because I think that's one thing Norvell is known for, his tight end usage, but we haven't had a we haven't really seen that come to fruition yet. You see Cam McDonald sometimes getting the touches, but you really haven't seen consistent usage. So does Johnny become that hybrid player that we're looking for based on his size and his athleticism? Any thoughts that you want to add about Johnny?
Yeah, you gotta use this guy in the red zone for sure. He's the physical type guy that most of your D backs are what 5'10", at most.
6'1",
This
2 at
this
most.
guy this guy's got to block him out like he's playing basketball and throw the ball up. Now, if he's got hopefully he's got above average hands. This guy should get you 6 to 8 touchdowns for the year. Okay, he should be a big factor in there, and I think Coach Mike is smart enough to know how to use this guy, and as a blocker too. He's 6'7", 225. That's huge. He's a Gronk-like type guy who can block a guy out and throw the ball in there. He's not going to be real fast. He's not going to run down the field and blow people away. But inside 10, 15, 20 yards, I expect to see him. I do expect to see him, and he's another guy we're going to get some production out of.
Yeah, you can even see just on the high school tape, I'm sharing up here, that you can pull off YouTube. You can see that he does know how to use his size in the red zone. You can see them just floating balls up to him, and he goes up and gets it at the highest point, which isn't hard for him because he's just jumping up in there, and that's going to be the biggest thing. Can he use that size against some of these smaller cornerbacks up there? So
he's a guy that if he could come into the program and put together 2 good years, he could go. He's going to get looked at the league. But if he doesn't have a good year this year, his time's running short.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he could, if they develop him correctly, become Kelvin Benjamin, who basically didn't do much his first couple of seasons.
Yeah.
And then that switch turned on that one season and became his ticket to the NFL, right?
Yeah, and Calvin, Calvin had some drops hand sometimes.
Yeah. He had brick hands.
But he caught the big one. That's the one that counted against Auburn.
Yeah, but that whole season, he did come up big.
Yeah, he did. No, he had a great year. Year.
But that's all Johnny needs. Johnny needs just to put it together for one season with that size. If you can put up, 500 yards, 400 yards, 5-6 TDs, he'd instantly become a weapon, especially for an NFL team. Yep. And then the last guy is an interesting one. This is the guy I think I've seen every podcast, blog site talk about the most, that they're excited about. And I think it's someone Norvell has kind of raved about too, about the most potential of anybody in the room, is Deuce Spann. So once again, a big size guy. And you'll notice that trend with all the receivers in terms of, if you look at the room, it got a lot bigger. So Deuce Spann is 6'4", 195.
They're going to have to expand the facility to put all these guys in. Yeah. That's how big the wide receiver room is.
Yeah, I mean, but, Deuce Spann's 6'4", Johnny's 6'7". The existing guys on their team, you have, 6'3", 6'2". So the team has definitely gotten bigger, even though, Micah and them are not huge guys, but they added some big weapons to the table, which is great to see. But, Deuce is basically a former quarterback. He played quarterback all in high school, and transitioned to a receiver at Illinois. So this is a guy that is still super, super raw, but he has so much potential in terms of his athleticism that schools were kind of drooling over this prospect of getting him into the program and developing him into what his potential could be. So I don't see him as, he's definitely not going to be a every down receiver. I don't even know if you see a lot of him this year, but I think the biggest potential is, do they build any QB packages around him this year? Kind of run pass option based on athleticism, based on his history as being a running back, being a key quarterback, and with that size again of being 6'4", could he play a hybrid role? Of that tight end hybrid role, or even see him in the red zone package with him and Johnny 6'4", 6'7", lined up. I think it's all going to be based on how his hands look and how he develops in the spring. And I believe he was an earlier enrollee too.
Yes.
But I think they're super, super excited about what he could be next year, his junior year, his senior year, if he puts everything together as being a full-time receiver.
Well, you said the key word, raw. He just hasn't seen the field a lot. The potential is probably there. but he hasn't seen the field, and they're going to have to find a fit for him like they do a lot of these guys. He's kind of a gadget guy,
Yeah.
And so I expect he'll be in on some plays as a threat and maybe a decoy, but kind of a gadget player, very raw.
I think that and his ability to block will be what puts him on the field early. Even if his hands aren't fully there yet, is he willing to block? Because that's something you may not see with a transitioning quarterback. Is he willing to get physical?
Yeah,
and that is
hard.
That's
That's
requisite to be part on the field with Mike Norvell.
That's something you don't learn. That's not something you learn one night.
But I think that's to be part of his success. I don't think you're going to see the field if you're not willing to block with Mike Norvell. So I think that's one thing that has.
Well, I'm sure they had that discussion.
Oh yeah,
unless they're bringing him in to help at quarterback, is that possible?
No, not at all.
Not at all. Right.
Not at all. Yeah. So talk about the transfers. I think we're excited about that group, especially seeing what Winston and Micah can bring right away, and then seeing what kind of gadget plays they use Johnny as with his frame and his size. I think those three are really going to be interesting to watch in how they upgrade that position this year and how we utilize them. Now we have some returns to go over. I'm going to start with the first two, or the one I'm personally most excited about to see how he develops. He was thrust in there as a true freshman. Basically caught 200 yards worth of catches with 2 touchdowns. He kind of started coming on at different parts of the season, but he started to show improvements towards the back half. Malik McClain, I think, has all the assets to be the next great Florida State receiver. 6'4", 200 pounds as a true freshman. He made my favorite catch of the year. It was my phone background. In terms, he high pointed it. He was falling away. I gotta put it up here because it's one of my favorite courtesy of ACC Network. But this is one of my favorite catches of the season. Oh, is this not the right one? I don't think this is it. But this is spring highlights. But basically, he goes up and high points the ball in the back of the end zone. I think it was against BC.
Yeah, I remember that. It was unbelievable.
I thought
unbelievable.
When I saw it live, I was like, he's not going to catch this. But
in a big game.
Yeah.
In a big game, a pressure game.
I didn't see a receiver make a play like that for Florida State in years. It's usually what you see like an Alabama receiver when these guys that's going pro make. And it opened my eyes to what this kid could be. So he's a true freshman. And this is he was a big time recruit for us to get too. So he's who I'm most excited to see is, can he make that jump from freshman to sophomore, or do we see a little bit of a sophomore slump based on the guys you're injecting into the program, or does that motivate him to say, I'm going to sharpen up my route running, I'm going to be a leader in here, this is my time, I'm not letting some transfer take away my playing time? Because I do believe he's one of the best recruits they've gotten into this program in a while, and it's really... he has all the tools to be successful.
Well, if he doesn't get his touches or doesn't get opportunities, he will be in the portal. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Because I think he believes in himself. He knows he can do this. I don't know what might be holding him back, but I think we need to get some good production out of Malik, and if he's not seeing the field, he won't be here next year.
Yeah.
Going down the sideline.
Yeah, unbelievable.
For the end zone.
Unbelievable.
In the back of the end zone
if he can become that 6'4" target that we're looking for, just consistency here.
And that's what we have to expect out of these guys that are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 6'7". They're big targets.
Yeah.
And you throw it up and you let them go get it.
Exactly. And we haven't had players that have been able to help out our quarterbacks by just throwing the vicinity and let them make a play. It's always had to be right on them and right in their hands. And I would love if he could become that player for us, because I do think he has all the tools to do that.
Okay. So I think he could take the next step.
So who is on your list in terms of returns that you think is?
Well, you've got to factor in Ontario Wilson, Pokey Wilson. He was our leading receiver He had 23 catches. I know it doesn't sound a lot. No, he wasn't the leader. It was Cam McDonald, and Parchment.
No, Terry Wilson was the leader.
No, he had 23. Parchment had 24.
Oh, in terms of catches,
by the numbers I see.
Yeah,
but the returning is Pokey Wilson. He's a redshirt senior. Now, this is it. This is the money year. So he's going to be motivated. There's a lot of motivated guys in the room. Okay, he's a small guy though. He's a small receiver. The NFL has big problems with small receivers. They like the big physical guy. So he may have to can he run back some punts? Can he run back some kickoffs to show that?
No.
I don't know. But his production was not nothing to put in Sports Illustrated, but I think he's going to play a factor in us winning games. And, I think he's got to step up and he's going to be a leader. I see him as one of the starters.
Yeah, I think I like Pokey because he seems to always he's consistently been around and he seems to consistently make plays. I think there's some factions in FSU that don't like him because I think he had some drop balls, but in my opinion, he makes more plays than he doesn't in terms of going across the middle or going down the sideline, making a tough catch and getting you on a first down when you desperately need it. So I feel like he's over, he's a senior now. He's one of two seniors in this group, that's been on the team for a while. I like him, like you said, almost 400 yards catching the ball, 5 touchdowns, to lead the team. So does he make a step up? Does he push with those with Micah and Winston Wright, or does he complement them? Does Winston, Ontario, and then Micah become the trio you have there? Now that would be a small group. That would be 3 receivers under 6 foot, or right at 6 foot or below. But can they be your guys that are catching all the balls, stretching the field? It would be interesting to watch. But I hope he does take a step forward and become more consistent. Because I do think he has all the tools, and he should know the playbook by now. He's been in the system the longest, and he should be able to take the next step. And I think with him is Keyshawn, who's been with him just as long. One of the guys that hasn't transferred, stuck with the program, has had a difficult injury history, especially last season. Only, come back from an injury, only have about 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's not the player he was before his injuries. But I think he's a guy that's stuck through the hardships, stuck with Norvell, stuck with the team. So I see him as more of as a leadership type role player. I don't think he's going to be, this is his final season. He's not going pro in my eyes, maybe like an XFL, SFL player. And I think he'll see his snaps kind of diminished based on the people behind him and the people he brought in. So I'm glad Keyshawn's on the team. I think he can make the team better in terms of practice play and stuff like that, but I don't see him having a major contribution as a redshirt senior in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree. Too many injuries, not being on the field enough. I think he's probably a real nice kid. Maybe he can help mentor people as well, or they can find, I think there's a lot of guys in this room. There's a couple more we need to talk about that are gadget type players, and Mike has to put them in certain positions to make them successful, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the key. Where do I put this guy? What can he do? Don't put him in positions he doesn't need to be there. But he'll flash with a good catch, a big catch at times. He's got the ability. It's just never really come out.
I think injuries have been the thing to hold him back, and I think, like you said, he's never, since his freshman or sophomore year, he has, like you said, the ability. He knows the playbook. He's the veteran in the locker room. I just don't know with all the other people you're bringing in, can he get to that next level, or does he make more plays like this? Does he hit that next year and become that veteran presence and that true leader that you want to see? So, I would love to see that, but I just don't know if I see that happening.
All right, let me take you to the next guy. We've already talked about him as a running back, but we saw him more as a receiver, Ja'Kai Douglas. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but he is a gadget player. But this guy can catch and he can run. The question, he's going to go in certain packages. He's a package player. He's not going to be a starting wide receiver. However, I say that. You remember a guy named Anquan Bolden? Remember his name?
Yep.
Okay. A lot of people say they don't even know where he played.
Yes.
He played at Florida State. You know, when he came to Florida State as a freshman, he was recruited as a quarterback. And he couldn't get on the field as a quarterback. He switches over, has a couple of good years, mainly his last year. The guy's like, is he Hall of Fame? I thought it was pretty damn close, you know. But Anquan Bolden had a great NFL career, and this guy turned into a great receiver. So Ja'Kai Douglas, good receiver, gadget player type guy, and you know, I think he's going to make a contribution. He's not going to catch a lot of balls. If he catches 15 balls, 20 balls, that's a good season. That's a good season. Okay.
Let's clarify, Anquan was a semifinalist this year, which is a big step before becoming a finalist.
He was unbelievable. He really had a great NFL career. Career. So Ja'Kai Douglas, you got anything else on him? If not, they have to account for this guy. They have to account for this guy.
Exactly. And I think that's the thing that frustrates Florida State fans is that, you know, you need to find ways to get guys like that the ball more. The impact players that you know that if they catch the ball, they can take it for an additional 5, 15, 25 yards. Those are, you know, you need to find
yards after the catch.
Exactly. You need to find ways to integrate them into it, no matter what their position is.
Now, let me, unless you got another comment, let me take you through some guys that are, I think they have potential, whether they show it or not. If they don't show it this year, these guys are probably going to be out of here. Okay.
All right.
The first guy is Joshua Burrell. Now he's a redshirt freshman. Okay. No, but wait a minute. But you can see the trend here in the receiver room. They're bringing in bigger guys. He's 6'2", 224. And I'd like to see this guy make a step to get onto the field, but the room's crowded. Okay.
He's hurt though.
No, I understand that. What I'm saying is, but if he can't get on the field this year, if he's not hurt, he's going to get, you know, I want to go play someplace. You know, I think he has the ability to play. I'm going to go through these rapid fire, and then you can come and make a comment.
All right.
Kentron Portier. Okay.
Portier, I think it is.
Portier. Redshirt sophomore, 6'3", 205. Here's another guy.
Yeah,
good size, physical guy. These are the types of guys the NFL want, but they got to get something on paper. They got to put some numbers out. I like both these guys. I think they have, but you may think they're a year away. I don't know.
That's what I think the consensus was when you brought these guys in. Joshua had higher potential, I think, than Kentron, but I think these were 2 to 3 year development projects.
Well, yeah, but they get frustrated too. All of a sudden, you're bringing in 4 new guys out of the portal. How am I going to get on the field?
Yeah.
It's going to make them better because they now have to compete.
Exactly.
Whether they play here or they go somewhere else. And we always wish every player the best of luck.
And you have to believe that the coaching staff is putting the best players on the field.
Oh, of course.
And that's what the players need to believe is that.
They know that.
You would believe that a lot of fans don't believe that. They're like, why isn't this guy playing? He has to be better.
They're the best guy. Right.
And that's what I'm saying. You have to trust that what they're seeing in practice is why they're putting guys.
You have to have a team of honesty. And that honesty is you'll be given feedback like you're on a regular job, right? Here's your feedback. Here's what you need to do and improve. And here's why you're not on the field. I mean, that starts in high school. Yeah. Okay. Now, here's the guy you mentioned earlier, Jordan Young, redshirt junior, 6'2", 210 again. No, we're not getting any production there.
No offense to him, but he's been all around the program for a while, and I don't think it's clicked for him. I liked him out of high school, and tape, I remember, his nickname, the amusement park.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't clicked for him. I think he's already been lapsed by younger players in terms of reps. I do think he is probably your biggest risk of being leaving, transferring, just kind of being scholars. Not you can't cut players, but saying, hey, you might be better at playing for Taggart at FAU because that's where all the Florida State players apparently go when they're done here. But I think he is prime example of it's probably best for you to, if you don't play this year, kind of spend your senior year shining somewhere else.
Well, I think you have to be honest with people.
Yeah.
You have to be honest with the players. You have to be honest with the coaches of because you want to see people succeed.
Yeah.
There's no coach on that staff that doesn't want to see these kids succeed. But there's only so many snaps per game. And they're going to put the players out there who are the best producers.
Yeah.
And every kid should understand that.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the way it is. That's reality. That's reality. Now, you also have Darren Williamson, another redshirt sophomore, 6'3", 200 pounds. He had 11 balls last year for 110 yards. Some potential there. Some potential. Maybe that was in mop-up duty against some of these teams.
I remember him making some catches last season.
Because we really didn't have mop-up duty on anybody. We don't blow anybody out.
Yeah, it's probably mop-up duty when we were down by 21 points or 28 points.
That's true.
So,
that's true. Yeah.
But I remember him making some catches. Like I said, he was a redshirt freshman last year.
Yeah, he's a redshirt sophomore this year. You like him.
I do like him. Once again, he's got the size. And I did see him make some openings so that he could catch the ball. I think it's whether or not he can carve out that spot to get more consistency, because I think that is part of it. Can you get consistent reps? Can you get on the field for 50% of the snaps, 60% of the snaps? Because I do think that plays into the mind of some of these younger players. Like, do they check out a little bit? If I'm getting pulled out, if I'm playing only 1 down, 2 downs per drive, stuff like that, does that play? I like I said, I'm not a college wide receiver. But sometimes you're not getting consistent reps at the position. Does that play with these younger guys' heads? So he's a player I personally like because what I've seen from on the field, even just in limited snaps. But I think one of those things is too, are the snaps being taken away because guys aren't willing to put the intangibles in, like blocking downfield?
Well, if they're not putting it in, if they're not putting in the time, it comes up on the film, and they're not playing next week.
And I'm not saying,
it's that simple.
That's what I'm saying. But I think those are one of the biggest things, and that's why you're seeing bigger receivers in this system, is that they value that above a lot of other things. You have to,
and we don't see all those little details. Whether you're at the game live or you're on TV. In fact, on TV, you actually see some of the details better.
When you see a bubble screen get blown up because the guy didn't block for you, you see that clearly.
Well, what I'm saying is when they break down the film, they grade every player. That's common. That's nothing new there. And they grade out.
Yeah.
And then the best players are going to play. This isn't Little League. You're not owed anything. Okay. Yeah. And so the best guys are going to be put on the field. That's it. Now there's one other guy that's kind of a hidden gem coming in, true freshman, Sam McCall. Now Sam McCall is looking to play mostly on the defensive side of the ball, but this kid in high school did some amazing things on offense as well. He's going to be a gadget guy on offense. He's 6'1", 182. He can run down the field, make some plays for you, but there's some gadget guys in this room that are going to go in on specific packages. So here's my problem when you're running guys in and out. Now, you said it's better to get guys out there and get their reps, and I agree with that. When you're running guys in and out, it can get a little dysfunctional at times, and we've seen that on the field. And when you see that in a big game, because we're not going to have any room for error, it can cost you.
Yeah, I think Sam McCall is one of those guys. He's the top recruit in the class. When Travis Hunter, converted over, and he was one of the guys that also tried to take, but he committed, and I think he has a chip on his shoulder, which is great. And so it'll be interesting. Like I said before, you have to use your best players wherever they are. You have to find ways to use your best players. And I think they were. Travis Hunter did come. I think they were going to use him on both sides of the ball, because you have to use your best players wherever you can.
Well, he's a space guy.
And
if you put him in space, he's going to go a long way. So
and if he can make an immediate impact on the offensive side of the ball, where it's going to take him time to crack the defensive back, depth chart, and take some time. Use him on the offensive side of the ball if that's the easier way to get him in to start making an impact. You have to put playmakers on the field as soon as possible. So I think Sam's the guy once again, that can get reps and get meaningful reps on the field. And it's the same with it because he is a top recruit and he should be on the field his freshman year in impactful moments.
He's got to have an impact.
And along with him is Azaria Thomas, who they also got, who was a surprise recruit that nobody thought was on the radar until the early signing period. And he's another guy that can play both ways. We'll see. Once again, we've talked about almost 10 to 12 guys here. Someone's got to.
I know. It's unbelievable.
So, like I said, I think this depth chart will be cleared out, especially with the existing guys who have come over season to season. After spring ball, you're going to see potentially two guys maybe transfer out. It could be your Jordan Youngs. It could be Keyshawn Hilton. You may be surprised you have Keyshawn Hilton or Interior. I do see you may see some attrition here after spring based on where people see themselves, because I don't see any way this team carries 10 receivers, 11 receivers. Maybe they do. If I was on the team, or say in the business world, if I was on the team that only could utilize 6 players or 6 team members at a time, but I was on the team of 11 people, and I knew, well, doesn't look like I'm going to be on the job site today, and also that hurts my paycheck because with these licensing deals and image and likeness, if I'm not playing, I have no sponsorship opportunities, right? So I need to go somewhere where I can make some money and get some playing time. So I do think you will see some.
Well, one of the things, we had. Last year the Noles were 94th ranked in passing offense. 94. That explains why you win 5 games. Now that has to improve, and we have to have that improved line play. And a balanced running game, that all contributes to the ball going downfield. Okay, so some of these struggles are also contributed to by these things I just mentioned. Now, here's some changes. Mike Norvell, he's going to be calling the plays. Coach Mike's going to be calling the plays. So that puts a lot of pressure on him to start, the production here, and. We got to get good quarterback play. If not, and that could be a reason why you can't bring in certain receivers, because the good receivers, the excellent receivers, and these guys are all good guys that we have. I think they have potential in the room. I do, but there's big question mark there. Mm-hmm. But 5-star receivers, they're going to places where there's a classic drop back quarterback. They don't want to play in the RPO systems. They want the ball because that's how you get on tape. But I think there's potential in the room. I think it's more complex than we think, but there's potential in that room to increase the production we had last year, and we're going to need that. We're going to need that to get to 5 wins and beyond.
Agreed. No, I agree with you there. And I do think that, the lack of production in terms of the pass game the last few seasons definitely hurt with who you could get and recruit. But I do think that who they brought in was probably, in terms of Winston, Winston being the crown jewel of the transfers, and the other guys, development. But I think Micah could be also a great contributor. So it'll be interesting to see how it turns out and what they have. But I do expect to see some attrition here come after spring ball. But yeah, we'll wait and see, and I'm sure we'll.
And the other thing, as we close out for tonight, that we haven't even talked about, and these guys catch a few balls too, the tight ends, which is another episode. That's a pretty packed room too. Yeah.
So we will definitely either have a segment on that or lump that into another small episode.
I think that's going to be a segment because that is a huge room.
Well, and it's a staple of a Mike Norvell offense, and we really haven't seen it.
Right.
We really haven't seen that come to full 100% capacity, power yet. We haven't seen Cam McDonald. We saw some of Jordan Wilson last year. He's gone now. We saw what he could do, but we really haven't seen what that tight end position can really do in this offense, other than block. So it'll be interesting to see what's in store there and what currently resides in the breakdown of that. So yeah, look out for that episode next. I think that does it for my side of things in terms of the receiver room. I'm excited to see who steps up this year. I think we have some good options, but I think, like we talked about, just sum it up, this is definitely a make or break year for at least Coach Ron, because if he doesn't, I think he has to have, a close to a 800, 900 yard receiver, if not multiple of them, to retain a job. If not, he's got to go, because you need to have some semblance of, we're improving this position to A, keep recruits coming in, and B, to attract new transfers. Because if that receiver room kind of behaves and develops as it did last year, you're basically done. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, no disagreement there. We appreciate people subscribing, hitting that like button, hit that bell, and that way you'll know when our next show is coming on the air. And look for us. We're having a good time. We welcome your comments all the time, and we are going to talk about other FSU sports, because we love them all. There's only so much time in each segment. We could be on here all night. We could have a marathon all night, but you could, because you could talk about this all the time. But we're gonna make some we're gonna have some chats about b-ball and softball and baseball. There's a lot going on. You got track, you got everything. But football is your big attention getter, obviously. Okay, that's it from here, down in warm, sunny Florida.
And we're out here in Virginia. Have a great night, everyone. Stay safe, and we will see you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.